This episode of Passing the Plate is sponsored by Storied Book Recipes from Storied. Welcome to Passing the Plate, the podcast that's all about food, traditions, and the incredible connections they create. I'm Ashley Cavelli, the food writer and recipe developer behind Big Flavors from a Tiny Kitchen.
And I'm Lisa Lisson, the genealogist and family history expert behind Are You My Cousin? We are your guides on this flavor-packed adventure. We're not just talking about recipes. We're diving into family history, exploring new cultures, and preserving favorite recipes for future generations. In short, we're celebrating the stories and tastes that come with every bite.
So grab a seat at the table and let's head out on a journey of flavor, tradition, and connection. This is Passing the Plate, where every episode is a feast for the senses and a celebration of togetherness.
We're getting a little corny in this episode. We're talking about that perennial summer favorite of sweet corn. Shucking corn at my grandparents in the summer was actually a favorite pastime of mine. How about you, Ashley? Was corn a part of your summer?
Well, I grew up in Indiana, so very much a corn area. My aunt and uncle ran a farm that had the coolest cornfields. They were a ton of fun to run around and get lost in with my cousins. It's kind of surreal how you think you're going straight through a path and then you turn around and try to go back, but it's very easy to get lost in there. And me and my cousins also used to play in the silos that had corn as feed for their cattle, which was, I know, not the safest thing to do, but
it's like, was it that kind of dangerous?
Yes. Well, my cousins had lots of injuries. They were very, there was two twin boys and then an older boy. They were all very rough and definitely good farmer material. We didn't get too lost in the silos, but it was definitely a lot of fun, just kind of like sliding down the hills and stuff. But my favorite part was at the end of every summer, my uncle would give us paper bags full of the most delicious sweet corn.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. What I remember is growing up when we would shuck the corn was, this is going to gross you out. I used to collect the little corn worms.
So gross.
So, you check the corn and they'd have all the silk on the corn. And my grandmother would give me a little jar, kind of like a baby food type jar, and poke holes in it for me. And I would collect my corn worms and put little corn silk in there. And,
oh my God.
Somehow they never made it home. Surprise, surprise. I wonder what my mother did with those.
Wow.
But anyway, those are my memories.
So we didn't have the internet when we were young children playing in cornfields, everyone.
Yeah. And I actually didn't grow up on a farm or in a farming community at all. But my grandfather he liked to garden and he had enough to feed the entire county. So we would go up, for say a week or two at a time and help, because when the corn came in, there was a lot of corn. And so that's really kind of my memories. And if I would help shuck the corn or shell the butter beans or whatever, then I didn't actually have to go out into the fields because, there were bugs out there and I didn't want to mess with the flying bugs.
Oh, just the worms
were fine. But yeah. Anyway, that might be more about
you don't want something
really
sneaking up on you.
Exactly. Yeah. I can outrun a worm. But anyway, but I do remember eating
that is
a lot
a
of
visual. You trying to outrun a worm. Because you said you didn't start running till you were like, what, 40?
50. I was 50 years old when I started running. Yep.
Sorry, we
nothing was chasing me. Okay. Anyway, moving on there on that one. I do remember eating a lot of corn on the cob growing up because obviously we had it at my grandparents, and then my mother and grandmother would freeze it, so we'd have it throughout the year. And I remember my grandmother making creamed corn. We'd have a lot of creamed corn with dinner. I didn't have it a lot later on, but I do remember being younger and she would add, I guess it was cream. Honestly,
I don't know that I know anyone who's made creamed corn and not just poured it out of a can. That's really interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she would make it. It was really good.
I bet.
Yeah.
A Southern grandma making creamed corn. I'm all in.
Yeah. Hey, right. So what about you? What were kind of the common ways that you would eat it growing up, or you or your mom would prepare it?
So really just boiled most of the time, because it was fresh and delicious. If you ever got it kind of not quite when it was fully in season, I remember my mom or my grandma would throw in a little sugar in with the water to help sweeten it up. And honestly, I don't think I ever ate it really raw as a kid, but now that I'm older and wiser, when corn is in season and it's ripe, you don't even need to cook it. You can just slice it right off the cob, and it's delicious. And you eat it raw. You don't even need to cook it. So I've got
Yeah,
a.
I've never done. I've not done that.
Oh,
I wouldn't have
Lisa.
thought about that. I mean, but when we would boil it, but it would. I remember what they would call blanching it. So, boiling water, they put it in just for seconds. It felt like, and
Hmm.
pull out, and they would freeze it that way. And I know we would eat it that way too. Sometimes I think.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever ate it raw. Raw.
Okay. Well, this summer, when corn is in season, try it. It's great added to like grain salad. Last summer I had some really great peaches that I got from a farmer's market when we were on vacation um in Maryland. I think the farmer's market was also in Maryland. It may have been in Delaware. But so I had these beautiful summer peaches, and one of my friends, she's got a microgreen company that I had known her online. I got to meet her in person out there because she sells at one of the farmers markets. So I got some of her microgreens, and I had these sweet peaches and some fresh corn, and I added it to some cooked grains. I had farro and freekeh. Say freekeh, Freekeh. It's like a toasted. It's a really interesting grain. It's really delicious. And I had also some fresh tomatoes, just really some fun stuff, some herbs. It was great in that kind of salad. It's also great just mixed with like fresh tomatoes. You can cut the corn off the cob again, toss it with maybe some red onions, some vinegar and olive oil and salt and pepper, just like a quick little tangy side dish that's great, like with grilled items or whatever.
So, Ashley, what are some of the common ways to prepare corn, or that we might want to eat corn today? Because I know there's a variety of things we can do with it besides just corn on the cob.
Oh yeah, and I feel like even though it was corn on the cob or canned corn for me as a kid, like there now I eat it in so many different ways. My most used method, and I did this last night, um, in the microwave, you can leave the husks on if they have husks, 2 minutes per ear. So I had 3 ears of corn, and you just put them right in the microwave on the microwave tray. You can put them on a plate if you want. I had 3 ears of corn, cobs of corn, ears of corn. Is the cob only the inside piece, like underneath the kernels?
I think so,
Okay.
but that's just kind of what I
Yeah.
think and how I used it.
Yeah.
I
All
don't know if
right.
I would go take that to the bank, but
So yeah, so I did 3 ears of corn, so I did 6 minutes. I've done up to like six. Um, and it cooks them beautifully.
do
So
you have
that's
to like partway through like turn them over,
nope.
like roll them over? Oh no, just
I just leave
straight
them.
up.
Yeah, and I've been doing that for several years now. It's just the easiest way. You can also steam them like in an instant pot. You can, boil them like I was saying before. For grilled corn, there's a lot of fun ways to use it. I have one recipe on my website. Now, this is like a very different way to use it. A chef out in Delaware, I interviewed him, and he made a dish with grilled corn that he made a relish with that and pickled peaches, and he used it on top of a raw tuna, like a very thinly sliced tuna. Really interesting combination. But using it in a relish like that is a really nice way to use it. um my When I first moved to my own place, my husband would grill corn a lot, and he had read somewhere that if you actually grill them in the husks, like you leave them in the husks while not over the really hot heat, but you get them that way until they're cooked, and then you can peel them just to get some char on them if you want, just at the end
Does,
there.
do you do you need to soak the husk at all before you do that or
No,
not?
it should. I think it's been a while since he's done it, but I think the fact that, the husks shouldn't be like dried out when you're grilling them. They should still have some moisture in there, and that moisture kind of steams them a little bit inside. Um, but yeah, because I think a lot of times people grill corn and they put it on too hot and it just burns and it doesn't actually like cook it. So he did that a lot. This episode of Passing the Plate is sponsored by Storied Book Recipes from Storied.
With every recipe, shared meal, and story told at the table, we're building a living history.
And that's what Storied is all about. It's a place to discover, preserve, and share your family's story online for future generations.
Storied allows you to build a detailed family tree, uncover historical records, and even explore newspaper archives to bring your ancestors' stories to life.
I love that it's not just names and dates. It's about capturing the heart of who your family is. Things like where they came from, what was important to them, how they lived, and even the things that they cooked in their daily lives.
Whether you're just starting out or deep into genealogy research, Storied makes it easy and meaningful to connect the dots and keep your legacy alive.
So while you're passing the plate, don't forget to pass on the stories too. Visit storied.com/plate or use code PLATE to save 20% and begin your journey today. There was a Rachel Ray recipe a million years ago. I looked back into my archives of things that I've cooked. It was the July 2007 issue of her magazine I used to subscribe to years ago, and it was a grilled skirt steak with a corn salsa and black beans. So that's just another, like, a corn salsa is a really nice way to use it.
I used to subscribe to her magazine too.
Yeah, I loved it. Every Day with Rachel Ray. Yeah, I don't know. Is that one still around?
I'm not sure. I don't think it still is, at least not the way it was.
Yeah, and the last time I looked at a magazine at the grocery store, just out of curiosity, it was like $13, and I'm sorry. But I will say, plug for Libby, the Libby app. If not all local libraries have the magazine edition, but a lot of them with your library card, you can check out digitally magazines. So like Bon Appetit, the few magazines that are still around, you can read them that way, which is nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I do that.
Yeah. There's also a recipe I can link to from How Sweet Eats that is a really tasty way to use corn in a side dish. It's a grilled corn and cheddar quinoa recipe. Yeah, that one is really nice. There's a slow cooker corn pudding that I made based on a Reddit post I found years ago, and I made it for our supper club, and it was really delicious. So I'll link that one also. Just like, different ways of using corn. Mm-hmm. But like I said,
pudding is very popular. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my friends,
I find it a bit sweet, even with my sweet tea. I find corn pudding to be almost more cakey, desserty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Than I do side dish.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think it pairs. It's like, it's such a nice canvas for other flavors. Like, it doesn't overpower, but it's it's just very summery to me. But I love that you said your family froze the stuff they grew in season. That makes it seem like a great way to have that really fresh sweet corn at a different time of year, because there's nothing quite like that.
Yeah, definitely. So I have a question when it comes to corn, and I remember, so if I'm buying corn at the store, I can cut the kernels off, because sometimes, like in a recipe, you need just obviously the kernels. You're not going to use corn on the cob. And I can remember watching my grandmother cut off kernels just forever. It felt like standing at the kitchen counter. But whenever I try it, I always feel like I make a huge mess.
Yeah.
Or I'm like leaving half my kernel still on the corn. Do you have any tricks that you can help me with?
Yeah. So there are tools they're either called like a corn zipper or a corn kernel remover tool, and I can link to one of those. I've never personally used one, but it kind of looks like a vegetable peeler, but it's got like an extra piece you run it down the length of the corn cob and it'll pull them off. There was a hack years ago that everybody was doing where you take a bundt pan and you stand the corn cob up vertically, and then you cut down, and the kernels are supposed to cascade down and catch in the bundt pan, but then A, you've got to clean a bundt pan, and B, half of the kernels flew out anyway. So what I find to be the easiest way, and I'll do my best at describing this verbally, since you can't see me, is you take the corn cob and you lay it down flat on your cutting board, and you use your knife and you cut straight down one side to get the kernels off. And then you can roll the cob over so you have a nice flat surface, and then repeat on the four. Sometimes you might need to turn it more than four sides, but having that flat side really helps. And I don't know why for so long everybody thought you needed to stand the cob upright to cut it, because that just leaves more distance for it to bounce and make a mess. Um, this
That's how
works
I
a
do it.
lot better vertically.
Vertically, because that's how I saw my grandmother
Yeah,
do it and
it
my
was
mom do
like
it, and I mean it was just a mess.
yeah. So you're doing the same thing, just lay it down flat. That way they don't have as far to fall. And if you don't want the pieces to be like stuck together, because you know when you cut it like that, you'll get kind of like sheets of corn pieces. You can
Mhm.
just break it apart with your hands. But I do think that the larger kind of bundles of kernels look nice
Well, I liked
sometimes.
I always thought that was
Yeah.
cool. See how many I could get.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, well, good to know. I mean, I do think it's lots of different ways to do it. That whole bump pan thing, though, yeah, that didn't work out too well.
Yeah.
I
I'm
will
like,
say
oh,
that.
that makes so much sense. And then I tried it. I was like, no, it does not.
Nope, not even. All right, so I have a question for you. Have you ever seen popcorn growing?
I have not, and I didn't even like I didn't even think about that as a thing. Um, does it look
Yeah.
different from standard, like a standard cornfield?
So it does. Well, yes and no. So my grandfather used to grow popcorn as well. I mean, he grew mostly just regular sweet corn, kind of regular corn, but he would grow popcorn. My dad absolutely loves popcorn, so granddaddy grew popcorn, and it worked one year, and so he kept doing it. And it tends to look. It's similar. I do think because popcorn is actually harder and denser.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little if you looked at it closely, you could tell that it was, kind of a fatter cop type thing. I think just from a distance, I wouldn't always pick it up, but then I'm not that savvy with that kind of stuff. What I couldn't figure out as a kid, because summertime, North Carolina heat, is why those things didn't pop in the cornfield. But they did.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, you can shuck those, you can get the corn husk off, but then obviously to pop them in a popcorn popper to use them because they're ready to go, once they've dried
Oh.
out. Well, actually, they do have to dry out. I don't remember if they did that on the stalk. I think they did that on the stalk, but you can do it probably
Do
otherwise
they have
too.
to
I don't remember.
shuck them before to let
Hmm.
them dry? So while they're
I
growing?
can't remember. I think I'm sitting. I can't remember what Granddaddy did. I think he left them on the thing as long as he could,
Mm-hmm.
the stalk. But then if they weren't completely dried out, I do think he probably put them in the shed or something and let them dry out for a period of time. But when they're ready, you got to get those kernels off, and that's hard. That's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
So Granddaddy actually he made some little sheller that he would do, and you just run that corn crop through, and it would kick off all the little popcorn kernels. And I mean, literally, they were ready to go
Huh.
to pop. But yeah, but
Interesting.
they were definitely. I did look this up. So when it comes to the popcorn, those kernels that come off, they have that hard outer shell. If you've ever looked
Mm-hmm.
at popcorn, because if you've never seen popcorn that was not in a microwave bag, okay, it does come. You can just buy the kernels. It's a really hard outer shell, and then the interior is very dark, dense, starchy thing. And
Mm.
so when it gets heated up, it goes kaboom, and you have popcorn, as we know. But it does. It takes a lot. It's really hard to do with just bare hands. Tear your
Interesting.
hands up.
You know, I one of the last times I was in Indiana, I went to a farmer's market and they had like one of the Amish families had a farm tent and they had popcorn. And I didn't even think about I don't think until you brought it up I've ever thought about popcorn growing. I don't know why. Like obviously, you know, they had like the different colors and it was really lovely, but I don't know why I didn't think of that as something that you farm like you would
Well, I didn't
regular
either.
corn.
I mean, obviously I was a kid, but I was like, whoa. I mean, I just thought that was the coolest and the strangest and the weirdest thing that you can grow popcorn,
Yeah.
and that it looks like, from a distance, it looks like regular corn. And so yeah, we would do it.
Yeah, I and if you haven't tried popcorn that doesn't come already in a bag, it is so great. You
Really
can
good.
control the ingredients that you put in there with it, butter or seasonings or whatever. And if you have a tiny kitchen like I do, they have collapsible silicone popcorn poppers. Because I always think of like my grandma had one of those popcorn popping machines that was like big, but I have this thing. It's like it basically looks like a bowl, but it collapses down and it has a lid, and you just put in the kernels and then you microwave it, and they grow, and the lid keeps it all in check, and it's great.
We did it old school ways. My dad, we had one pot that was special. It was called the popcorn pot. Well, it was a sauce pot, basically.
Yeah.
He would put the oil, warm it up, you'd hear it pop, and you had to shake it over the stove. There were a hole in that pot, too. You had to get another one.
Wow.
I mean, that's how much pot we ate growing up.
That's great. Have you ever done a corn maze?
Oh, yes. Love a corn maze. I love those mazes.
Yeah, I don't think that I ever did one in Indiana, but I did out here in New York, and I still tease my husband to this day because the first time we did one together, we were with a group of friends, and he has this way of like sounding like very assured that he knows what he's talking about, even if maybe he doesn't. So he swore that if you just kept turning left anytime there was an intersection, that you would eventually get your way out. And spoiler alert, that is not true.
Oh, that is so funny. That is so funny. The first one we ever did were when my kids were young, probably elementary school, and we were on vacation up in Pennsylvania and did one, and it was amazing. Oh, okay, that's no pun intended. It was so amazing. It was no pun intended there, I promise. But we had so much fun with that. It was almost a disappointment when we got out because we were having so much fun doing it and stuff. So, but then, and since then, of course, we see, a lot more of those around, but they're a lot of fun to do, definitely.
I love that. You can find links to resources and recipes we've discussed today in the show notes for this episode at passingtheplate.org/64. That's a wrap on this episode of Passing the Plate. We hope you enjoyed our journey into the world of food, traditions, and the amazing connections they create.
It's been a pleasure sharing these stories and flavors with you. Remember, food is more than just sustenance. It's a way to connect with our past, present, and future.
So keep sharing your meals, keep passing those plates, and keep creating memories that will last a lifetime. Head to passingtheplate.org/podcast for show notes.